Hello everyone, my name is Kesia Velasquez Gonzalez and I will be presenting for week 5. I will be going over social influence, conformity, obedience, individuals and group performance. Social influence. According to the text, social influence refers to ways that people are affected by the real and imagined pressures of others. Social influence on behavior ranges from the implicit pressures of group norms to the traps set by direct request to the powerful commands of authority. It depends on the strength, immediacy, and number of source persons relative to the target persons. However, according to Rees and Wallace, social influence is more than the individual behaviorally yielding to an established group norm. According to the study by Rees and Wallace, 2014, there's evidence that demonstrates strong support for the capacity of individuals to resist the majority group's influence. Sheer numbers in a group sometimes is not enough to elicit social influence. Minority influence leads to the social behavior of conversion through a validation process. Ultimately, a change or influence will depend on one's culture and whether autonomy or independence is valued, and how often these values change. Conformity. Why do people conform? People engage in conformity every day without noticing by changing their behavior or opinions to match the norm. Humans conform for a variety of reasons, which include the need to be right and a fear of ostracism. The need to be right occurs when a person believes others are correct in their judgments, which makes the person think that if others agree on something, they must be right. This process can work when a person is uncertain, and following collective wisdom of others may prove to be an effective strategy, such as the popular TV program Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where contestants have the option to call a friend or ask the audience. Other examples include reviews on Yelp, Amazon, eBay, Rotten Tomatoes, and many others where people look for others' input to make a decision. A fear of ostracism is another reason to conform. The recent Wallace article states that the social life of an adolescent is often better if he or she conforms because failure to do so risks ostracism from the group. The case in text states that early on, research showed that individuals who stray from a group's norm tend to be disliked, rejected, ridiculed, and outright dismissed, explaining why people often conform rather than dissent. Majority influence can be influenced by group members, but up to a point. What matters within a group is how many distinct others who think independently the group includes. Knowing how others are behaving in a given situation is necessary for conformity. Social norms give rise to conformity when norms are known. When there is an existing norm in place, we tend to follow that norm when it is brought to our awareness or it is activated. Minority influence may be socially difficult, but it is not impossible. One dissenter can resist the pressure to conform and convince others to follow. According to Moscovici, nonconformists derive power from the style of their behavior. Consistency can signal that the dissenter is unlikely to yield, which leads to those in majority to feel pressured and compromise. Dissent in this case can be either positive and spark innovation or lead to hostility. In Rees and Wallace's experiment, conformity can be influenced by a majority or minority. The minority position of non-drinkers who stand alone are more likely to begin drinking. However, people can resist the onset of alcohol use when they are in a minority position and have a friend or two who are also resisting alcohol use. Minorities can force other group members to think more carefully and in a new, different direction. Obedience. Blind obedience can lead to atrocious acts that we have seen in history, such as World War II, where millions of innocent people died and many claimed that they were just following orders. Milgram's experiment, as we have seen before, demonstrates how often people can follow directions in blind obedience due to the presence of an authority figure. I will be going over each topic in reference to Milgram's experiment. The obedient participant. After World War II, a questionnaire was developed to identify authoritarian personalities Individuals with an authoritarian personality score high on qualities such as being rigid, dogmatic, sexually repressed, ethnocentric, intolerant of dissent, and punitive. They were submissive towards authority but aggressive towards subordinates. Although these characteristics may make someone vulnerable or resistant to blind or destructive obedience, the situation in which a person finds themselves is also very important. The authority. Although a lab coat does not necessarily signal a powerful figure of authority, the physical presence and apparent legitimacy play major roles in drawing obedience. The physical presence of a prestigious authority figure is required for destructive obedience. The victim. In the experiment, the victim was separated from the learner, suggesting that the learner was able to distance themselves emotionally from the consequences of their actions. Although individuals are capable of resistance when they have a prior relationship with the victim, which was shown during another Milgram experiment while bringing a friend. The procedure. In the experiment, the participants were led to believe that they were free of personal responsibility, in which only 12% of participants who exhibited full obedience gave any indication that they had any responsibility. If the individuals were led to believe they were responsible, the obedience rates dropped considerably. Another factor was the novel situation in which participants found themselves. Since there were no established forms, they did not know how to act or respond, and were given commands at a quick pace. Milgram's experiment served a big purpose in understanding human nature and the important problem of destructive obedience. Individuals and groups. Humans have an inherent need to belong and be part of a group that helps raise their self-esteem and sense of belonging. According to Kaysen, much more integrated groups include tight-knit clubs, sports teams, or work teams. Hawley, Hosch, and Bouvard state that in-group members protect their self-esteem by showing favoritism and leniency towards other in-group members, despite their transactions. Now that we have established the need to belong to a group, I will talk about how the presence of others can affect individuals. Within social facilitation, there are a few topics that describe how the presence of others affect us by either enhancing performance when a task is easy or impairing performance when the task is difficult. The mere presence of others is enough to produce social facilitation. However, the evolution apprehension theory states that the presence of others will produce social facilitation only if those others are seen as potential evaluators. The distraction conflict theory states that social facilitation occurs only when we are distracted by others while we are working on a task. Social loafing refers to the reduction in individual output when working together in a group because less effort is exerted when acting collectively. When there are others to pick up the slack, people slack off. This occurs in different settings such as playing sports, cognitive tasks, working environment, among many others. De-individuation is the loss of a person's sense of individuality and the reduction of normal constraints against deviant behavior. People turn to this destructive behavior often after a big win or lose situation regarding team sports, where celebration takes a turn for the worse by engaging in destruction and vandalism, such as the example seen in the text. When accountability is low, those committing deviant acts are less likely to get caught. Group performance. Group performance can be affected by a variety of reasons and may underperform. Brainstorming is an idea that attempts to increase the production of creative ideas by encouraging group members to speak freely without criticizing their own or others' contribution. Brainstorming can be a very effective tool if people brainstorm individually. Those in group settings may underperform, for example, by engaging in social loafing, leading to the ineffective use of the brainstorming tool. Electronic brainstorming has been proven to be effective. Here, people share their ideas through electronic devices that appear on a central screen, which allows people to work alone and not have to wait their turn while having the stimulation of idea of others. Group polarization can lead to the exaggeration of initial tendencies in the thinking of group members through group discussion. If the group initially leans toward a risky position, the group members will move towards a riskier position. If they lean towards a cautious position, the group leads to an even more cautious position. Examples of group polarization can be seen in politics, where groups tend to move to the extremes. Groupthink is a decision made based on the tendency for group members to seek uniformity or agreement. It takes priority over the motivation to seek accurate information and make appropriate decisions. There are three characteristics that contribute to groupthink. Number one, highly cohesive groups which tend to reject deviant opinions. Number two, group structure which is comprised of those with similar backgrounds, isolated from other people. They're directed by a strong leader and they lack a systematic procedure for making decisions. And number three, stressful situations that create urgency which overrules accuracy. Groupthink can be prevented by avoiding isolation, reduce the group's pressure to conform, and encourage criticism, and establishing a strong norm of critical review and assigning a member to play devil's advocate and question decisions and ideas before taking action. In summary, I have talked about social influence, conformity, obedience, individuals and groups, and group performance. My two questions are as follows. How can we use our knowledge of conformity, compliance, and obedience to prevent or reduce the amount adolescents engage in risky behavior? And how can a member of a group dissent a popular opinion within the group without risking his or her membership? Thank you for listening to my presentation.